Everyone's going to be part of this journey. You and I are going to be part of this journey in the next 10 years. And I love to be in the space where there's all the excitement. We have charging stations which have digital screens on them, 55-inch screens.
What is this problem with the chargers? Why is it so complicated? I don't understand. My bigger brain cannot get it.
You want to set up a business that will give you very quick ROI. I will give you the software, I'll give you the app, I'll give you the payment gateway, I will even get you ads.
I feel in India more than the Starbucks, KFC, Subway, McDonald's, it's the dhabas.
So the hospitality industry is like they were waiting for someone to approach them and say, listen, let's do this. We've signed up with pretty much all the large hotel groups.
Do you think it's inevitable that every parking spot in the world eventually will be a charging station?
Absolutely. It has to be. Tomorrow it will be as important as having air conditioning, because people with an EV will not come and stay at your hotel unless you have charging.
How much money will it take for you to revolutionize this charging infrastructure in India?
I need $100 million today.
That's a lot of money.
So you need to really think of what this customer wants.
Something just feels off.
Climate change is a problem that's evident right now. It's not a story that we are telling for the future. I think from 1970 to today, if you really look at it, there have been more than 500 incidents where climate change has impacted us, especially in India, whether it's floods, heat waves, cyclones, etc. So I come from Kerala, and flooding is become a very common thing there. It was not like that 5 years ago, but now every year there's a problem, and there's billions of dollars that goes into the livelihoods, businesses that are destroyed, etc. with climate change. So it's not a small problem which we say, okay, our children or our grandchildren might face. It's something that we face today. I'll give you an example. My son goes to school in Delhi, and his school timings were changed because of a heat wave last year. I mean, it's incredible that we have to listen to this kind of stuff. So I think globally, people are trying to drive consciousness into people. I think pollution is a significant part of the problem. Especially sitting here in Delhi, we know that we have this problem every year, and tailpipe emission is a major contributor to this. So if I were to look at the business that we are in today, we think that electric mobility, which has zero tailpipe emission, is the only way to go, and it's time that we did this yesterday. So in a certain way, along with the government, people like us who through entrepreneurship are contributing to a safer tomorrow, I think we all have a role to play, and this is the way that Sunfuel was emphasized, right? We wanted to figure out how we can accelerate this adoption of electric vehicles, and to accelerate this, you need the ecosystem. By ecosystem, you need the charging infra and you need the cars on the road. So I think in a certain way, we take a lot of pride in feeling like we are part of this nation building, which effectively can bring down pollution to a large extent. So that's the way. I mean, our vision really is to accelerate this adoption of electric cars. So the moment electric cars come by, pollution comes down, our business goes up, right? What comes first, electric cars or the charging stations? Now, someone's got to bite the bullet and do it. You can't always just rely on the government to set up everything, right? They will play a role. They will give you direction. They will give you incentives. So there is a FAME policy, for example, which is called the faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles, where there are incentives that are given to the players in the industry as well as to the consumers. So this is a direction where the government says, okay, by 2030, I want 30% of all mobility, personal mobility, to be electric, and 70% of commercial vehicles to be electric.
Why is that so? Why is that so difficult? Why doesn't that happen now? Why can't like all cars just magically become electric? And we already have electricity in the homes. Like the grid has been set up. What is this problem with the chargers? Why is it so complicated? I don't understand. My bigger brain cannot get it.
From a business perspective, right? You want to set up a business that will give you very quick ROI. So people that come into a very capex heavy business like this, where you have to set up machinery, it's very high skin in the game. You need to get locations. You need to win government tenders. You need to go after hosting partners across the country. And India is a very large country. Different states have different policies. It's not such an easy thing to set up this infra, right? You need to have a long-term vision as far as this game is concerned, and you need to have a phase-by-phase plan in terms of the way you set it up. Uh, like for example, at Sunfuel, we have a very different way of thinking about the charging infra in India as compared to some of the others. We have looked at this entire industry of EVs in terms of four different pillars. We've segmented it. We call it highway charging, we call it destination charging, and we call it city charging.
You define all of them.
So city charging essentially is charging in, let's say in GK, what you find around you is city charging. Now, I'll delve a little more into it. In city charging generally remains unutilized. The reason is most of the time your vehicle is parked. It's not running continuously, right? And most vehicles have a range of about 250 kilometers upwards. I'm talking about the four-wheeler segment. So 90% of the time when your car is parked, that's when you charge it. You charge it at home, you charge it in your office, you charge it when you go to, let's say, to a restaurant and there's a charging station there, you charge it there. You don't go to a public charging station that often. So they generally remain unutilized. But it's important that you have that also, because people need to feel comfortable to make that decision to buy an EV, and that will come only when they see charging stations around them. So that's one part of it. So you have chargers in the city which generally remain unutilized. So who puts up that? What is the ROI model for that? You know. So what we've done for the city is we focused on programmatic digital advertising.
What does that mean?
We have charging stations which have digital screens on them, 55-inch screens, and we have brands that partner with us, brands that are conscious, brands that want to be associated with new technology, brands that want to be associated with sustainability. So they play a role in helping us set up that infrastructure, right? So that's one. The second part is destination charging. In fact, uh, we have partnered with most of the hospitality sectors, some marquee brands like ITC, Welcome Heritage, Radisson Hotel Group, Intercontinental, uh, Evolve Back, a lot of clubs, especially in the south, a lot of golf clubs, etc. We've partnered with them and set up charging stations there. So when you travel outside the city, wherever you go, right, driving an electric car, your behavior will be such that you need to find charging where you go and sleep overnight. So, for example, you drive from Delhi to Chandigarh, right? You have enough range to get there, but you don't have enough range to come back. So, ideally, if you go and stay at, let's say, Radisson Hotel there, you want to ensure that there is charging there. So, the hospitality industry is like they were waiting for someone to approach them and say, listen, let's do this. And when we approached them 2.5 years ago, they were really keen to come on board. And we've signed up with pretty much all the large hotel groups, about 400 locations across the country. And that was our first major foray. So we said, let's look at it distinctly. Let's segment the market, go after certain niches which we want. We don't want to be spread thin all over the place. The last and the most important segment is highway charging. Highway charging is important again because if you drive distances of more than 250 kilometers or so, you need to be ensured that you're not going to get stuck on the road. Again, with highway charging, there are different ways to look at it. Do you want to be at a petrol station? Do you want to be at an eatery? Do you want to be at some kind of a pit stop where you're also able to have other amenities that take care of your needs? Now, initially, what's happened is the oil and gas companies have started putting chargers in their petrol stations. But conceptually, it doesn't really work because you can't go to a petrol station and spend 45 minutes there, right?
I feel there's a difference between the North American model and the Indian model on this front.
Yeah.
Because there the petrol stations are pretty fancy. So we have these stops or stopovers or rest areas in Canada, where when you're traveling on the highway, there'll be like a nice place built in.
That's why you stop anyway, right?
Stop, you spend an hour there or 45 minutes, and in that time your charging can be done, and they'll put up very fast DC chargers for you. Why can't that be done in India?
It has to be done. So it doesn't really have to see, petrol stations in India don't have that kind of a catchment where everybody stops by. There's an eatery, there's a coffee shop, etc. These are mostly most. I'm talking about 95% or 99% even would just be petrol stations. In the city, you see the ones with the eateries and all that, but they're still uh, not required here. Really, you need them on the highway. But on the highway now, you see places where you have like a bunch of there's Starbucks and there's KFC or whatever, McDonald's, a bunch of them grouped together. Those are the kind of places where you need really fast chargers.
I feel in India more than the Starbucks, KFC, Subway, McDonald's, it's the dhabas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those the
Like, think
dhabas
about
are
Kirtal and all that.
massive.
The
Yeah,
number of vehicles that come and stop there, and they stop for 45 minutes to an hour, perfect time. You don't even realize that you're charging, right?
this is bringing me back to this video I saw. They covered this thing that they've done at the Gatwick Airport in London, where they have created this sort of mall charging kind of a situation at the Gatwick Airport, where you have your chargers. You have like maybe 50 or 100 charging spots that are available. Like it's a massive location, and you're always going to find a charger. And there's like your groceries are there. There's like Amazon Prime shop, grocery shopping, and everything is there. So your whole airport visit, or if you're leaving the airport and you have like an EV that's parked in long-term parking, you don't have to think about that. Oh, when I come back, the EV is going to be out of charge. Like you come back, you take your car, you go to this place, you do your shopping and things like that for you're getting back home, and your car is charged in the meantime.
Do you think it's inevitable that every parking spot in the world eventually will be a charging station?
Absolutely, it has to be. So there is this concept of electric thinking versus gasoline thinking, right? There is a whole behavioral change that will come about with electric mobility, or this huge transition that we are undertaking, right? Uh, Gasoline thinking was that you need to drive to a petrol station, and that's where you will find your petrol, diesel, whatever, and you top up your vehicle and you go on. And this has been going on for the last 100 years or so. Now, electric thinking says that electricity is available pretty much everywhere. So you need to be where the parking lot is. And I explained this concept before, that your vehicle is in a parking lot most of the time. Nobody runs a car 24 hours, right?
Especially a personal vehicle. I mean, a commercial vehicle,
Yeah,
you
commercial
can, yeah.
vehicles is a different segment altogether, which we are not operating in at the moment. We are looking at the personal four-wheeler segment, and we feel that it charging has to be where the car would otherwise be normally parked. Let's assume that a person's daily life involves charging at home, going to the office, maybe going somewhere to play a sport or gym, whatever, shopping, and come back. These are the places where it actually needs to be. And that's what we've tried to focus on. And we've really tried to move away from this gas station model. We've only set up charging stations where it would be convenient for an early adopter. Now, this early adopter is also something that I need to talk about, which is the customer who's bought an EV today has paid about 30% more than a petrol vehicle to buy that thing, right? If not more. Now, this is also because it's early stages, the mass production hasn't started, lithium is being imported, all that's there. Now, this person is a certain archetype. He or she is young, they're edgy, they're well educated, well traveled, conscious of the environment, conscious of the advantages of an EV, etc. And they have a certain level of expectation also from the ecosystem, right? And they are not going to go to a petrol station and wait for 45 minutes in the heat, right? So they'd rather be near a coffee shop, or they'd be near a restaurant.
Again, there's a cultural change.
Yeah.
So in North America, people are very comfortable sitting in their cars.
In the car.
In the
But
cars.
it's also dependent on multiple things, like
Weather.
the weather. Weather is one of them. Safety is one of them. There are places that you wouldn't want to be, with your family for 45 minutes on a highway in a petrol station, because you don't know, what that could lead to. There's also the challenge from a charge point operator's side, that when you set up infrastructure in places which are scantily populated on the highway, etc., you find that people come and steal your stuff, right? So the growth has to be there, but you have to find a way through the madness to ensure that it's you provide a safe environment. So you need to really think of what this customer wants, and figure out that this journey of electric vehicle charging starts not just when they are driving and they're running out of charge. It's before they travel. They think about, okay, listen, which route should I take, where would I stop, which is a brand that I can associate with, where I know that the charging station
Will be
works.
working.
Like the Tesla
Right.
supercharging network.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tesla superchargers, again, somewhere on YouTube, I was reading about electric vehicle charging and why it's a challenge. I remember seeing that one of the Tesla superchargers costs $125,000.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
How much do
Exactly.
you cost, Matthew? How much money will it take for you to revolutionize this charging infrastructure in India?
Look, if I could raise money, and money was available, I'd need $100 million today. We actually have drawn out a plan for that, and then we've come back to seeing how do you do this in stages. Eventually, if you want to be in the infrastructure play, you have to raise that kind of capital over time, or you choose to be a niche player. Now, this industry is so young and nascent that we don't know where and how it's going to play out. What we're trying to do right now is try to be as profitable as we can with our business model at this given time. What I mean by this given time is the number of vehicles that are sold in India today. The four-wheeler segment is about 3.7 million vehicles
Per year.
per year, and only less than 2% is EVs today. Now, let's assume the general assumption or projection is that this will go to about 7 million by 2030. And if the government meets its objective of getting 30% as EVs by then, we'll have 2 million cars which are on the road. So you'll see utilization suddenly skyrocket. So right now, utilization for most people in the industry, charge point operators, is less than 10%. 10% is a good number.
What do you mean by utilization?
So these are unmanned charging stations. So essentially, they open 24 hours a day. So within 24 hours, if it's utilized for about 3 hours a day, that's more than 10% utilization, right? Now, I have seen stations that were set up 2.5 years ago where we've not had utilization for days together, right? Because the number of vehicles on the road, the discovery, all this has to happen, right? Now, from going from 0 to 10% in 2 years is also good, but to move to like an 80% utilization, 100% utilization, is going to take some time. So you need to think of different business models that will help you, create revenue from right from the go. And that's why we have come up with this hybrid model.
When you say it's an unmanned charging station, right? Once it has been set up, what is the kind of costs that is associated with running it, and how often does it require maintenance?
Essentially, these are all the charges are online. We have a system where we monitor what we call a heart rate. So every second we know if the charger is working. We know when the charger is being utilized. We know who the customer is. We know how much he's charged, how many kilowatt of energy has gone through, when the charging session has stopped, and when the customer has moved on. We also get feedback from the customer on the app that tells us, was it a good experience? Did he have any niggles? We have a back office where people pick up calls when people need help. Remember, there are a lot of people who are new to the whole EV space. They don't know how to charge. They don't know how to use an app. So there are a lot of ifs and buts to have a clear and good charging experience. Uh, but once you set up a charging station, being unmanned, it's you save on labor cost because you don't need uh, somebody to be there like a petrol pump. Payment is easy; it's online through the app. But you have to do some sort of preventive maintenance, like even if it's just as simple as cleaning the environment. It's to ensure that you have enough directions, mandates on how to use them, because people have used there are multiple players in the market, right? So each one has a different step. Each charger looks different, so it could cause confusion with the EV user. So you need to be very specific with instructions on how to use them. Yeah, go ahead.
Your definition of the avatar who is using the EVs right now is well educated and maybe top 1% India, top 2% India. That's where the EV user belongs, right? When that definition changes, wouldn't that bring in a lot more complicacy to unmanned EV chargers? And what
Because if these people are struggling with using an app or using different chargers when they are probably the people who have grown up with technology all their life rather than having adopted it a little later. And if you're saying that there are also XYZ challenges that you guys are facing with these people, that is only going to get like that hill is going to get steeper rather than.
I think we can look at it in two ways. Like, if my father was to use a charging station, like, I know when he started using it initially, it was a big challenge, but he's gotten used to it. But many people like him would find that curve pretty difficult, right? Even to use the mobile phone and
would he get out of his car to plug it in? Because that is another thing that in India is like not there.
Yeah.
If I am going to get my petrol filled in the US, I get out of my car and do everything. Here, I don't.
in a dusty petrol station, you don't want to get out and do this because that charging station itself looks absolutely dusty and disgusting.
Well, then I think dusty petrol station. I think that's where the whole coffee shop angle comes in. That you're getting out of your car to go to a coffee shop. So you're getting out and plugging it in is a. I mean, you're getting out is not a step.
Yeah.
It's just you're plugging it in rather than just locking your car and walking on.
One of the very important things that we focused on very initially was to create a brand. And when you create a brand, we wanted to have a product that goes behind the brand. And this product we designed with IIT Delhi. We had some professors support us. We have a designer onboarded right at the very beginning to see how we can change this market, right? For example, when I saw my first charging station, which was in Hong Kong, it looked fantastic. When I came to India and I saw one set up in Khan Market by ESL, I was disgusted because the whole thing was full of dust, and the environment is not such that I feel really nice to be using this. So we designed a charging station which looked fantastic, which is what we call the monolith, and that's why I was able to go to the hospitality sector. Our first charging installation as a startup, which we started, was at ITC Moria, which is like one of the most marquee properties that exists in India. And the reason why they really fell in love with our product and said, let's do this, is because they had looked at the other charging stations that were there in the country and the way that our design was so fulfilling in their environment. Like it fit in really well because it's a very slick way. Wires are hidden. There's nothing sticking out that makes you feel like, it could be a dangerous thing, right? Like most of the chargers that you see are like geysers and there could be some wiring hanging around. So we try to revolutionize that.
Either like geysers or they look like the petrol station,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
what do I say, the fuel dispenser.
Yeah, the dispenser. So we've tried to actually create it to be a product where this early adopter would kind of embrace it, would feel like it's a really cool thing to use. So that really helped us, and that's why even as a startup, we've got these chain deals with these large hospitality chains, because they just really blended in the environment.
So let's talk about these chain deals. If I am running a property, let's say I run my own Sheraton or I run my own ITC, right? And I want to put your charger in. Do I pay for the charger? Do you pay for the charger? Who pays for the charger? How do I make any money by doing this? Or is it just an add on service that I'm able to provide my customers? Costs, benefits, and the flow of money.
As a hotelier, you need to have this as an amenity, right? It's as important today. I mean, tomorrow it will be as important as having air conditioning because people with an EV will not come and stay at your hotel unless you have EV charging, right? So 3 years ago, when I went to the hospitality industry and we were talking about EVs, they didn't know what an EV meant, right? Or what was the full form of EV. But today, uh, hospitality companies reach out to us saying that, listen, we've got inquiries from customers. They want to make a booking, but they want to come only if there is EV charging facility at my property. So it's an amenity. It is a necessity for an EV user. If you want them to come to your property and stay overnight, it's something that's required. So when we approached the hospitality sector, we told them that we will provide this amenity. We will set up the capex. We will uh, provide the app. We will provide the gateway. We will utilize the space on the charging station for advertising, which will be our bread and butter from day one, because utilization is likely to be low initially, and we will give you 10% above the cost of electricity.
Do you make more money from advertisements than you do from the thing running itself?
See, at the moment, yes. At the moment, yes. So for every dollar spent, we are profitable from advertising and not through selling electricity.
Matthew, I have to commend you on that. So there is this concept that has come about, out of home advertising, or OOH.
Ours is programmatic digital out of home advertising.
It's OOH always has a display. So like in front of lifts, they'll put like a thing where, as we were talking about TVs,
Yeah.
lifts, be it like
There's a-
airport shopping trolleys.
There's a TV with a small display below it. You can get the TV for free, and they get to show you the ads.
I was like, why isn't everyone doing this? And it's really nice to see that you all are doing this, and it is your bread and butter, and that's making you profitable.
See, it's a phase, right? Today, I can't depend on electricity arbitrage to pay the bills. So we have to think of some other value-added service which can help us. There are other things that we've done. We've tied up with the likes of 3M, right? They do car servicing. So at a highway charging station, we have somebody from 3M who's there, who does car cleaning, car polishing. So there are certain activities that can be done in 45 minutes when you're in having a pizza or whatever it is that you're doing at that particular pit stop. So we make money from that too. We make money from the advertising. We're going to have other partners like this, where we will be able to create value added services and not just focus on selling electricity.
A one-stop shop for like all things associated to your cars.
Very interesting concept. You're having a person with like a high paying potential customer, because he drives a four-wheeler which is an EV, within your grip for a period of 45 minutes to an hour and a half. Now, what are the services that could appeal to that person, right? While that car is anyway parked there. Those are the things that you should think about. So, for example, look at an airport terminal, right? Years ago, when an airport terminal came there, you just went there, got onto the plane, and moved to your destination. Today, you go in 3 hours early, right? And then what do? You shop, you eat, you go for a massage, there's a spa. So actually, terminal fees is just about 20% of their revenue. The rest of it comes from advertising, from retail, etc.
What is more important to you, more chargers or ownership of those chargers? I want like a binary answer.
More chargers.
If I am to take the capex on my head to set up a home charger with the programmed display ad, and I will own the ad revenue and you will take 10% of it, would you be open to that?
Of course.
So how much would it cost? Will you find me the advertisements? And how much can I get paid?
Yeah, interesting question. So one of my co-founders, Rishabh Mehta, we have four of us. There's Gul, Sudhir, who's the CEO, Rishabh, who looks after programmatic advertising, and me. So the four of us have distinct job roles, and one of us, Rishabh, is a digital advertising guy, in the sense he's run companies where they've had like 70,000-80,000 screens, where you see these residential screens, you see screens in malls. He runs them, and we integrated this part of the business through Rishabh at the very beginning. So this was part of at the time that we started itself. We started with this concept that to get through this first phase where utilization is low, we need to figure out how we can get ancillary revenue, and this seemed to be one of them. So what we want to do going forward is not put the capex up front, right? Now, like I said, this is a phase by phase business. To create a brand, you need to have your product out there. You need to control the product. You need to know that the uptime is good, the experience is good, etc. Once you've got that bucket sorted, then you can go and reach out to somebody and say, for example, to you, and say, listen, let me franchise this to you. I will give you the software, I'll give you the app, I'll give you the payment gateway, I will even get you ads. You buy this from me. So you say, okay, listen, I'll spend X amount and pick up this charging station. I will set this up in my home, and we'll work out a deal where it'll be a sharing of either electricity as well as ads.
Why not go one step further? Don't give me the app. Don't give me the payment gateway. I don't care about the payment that comes from the electricity selling. Take all of that home. Take care of the station for me. Send a person once a month, once a week, or whatever you see fit. Comes in, takes care of that. It's your charger. You are running it. I own the advertisement thing on it. Take 10. I'll take 90% of the advertisement fee. Your charger. I'll even do the capex for it. Will you be open to that? I don't want any hassle. For me, it is a passive investment, as if I put a billboard on top of my house.
Look, see, it's important to distinguish that we are not an advertising business, right? We are a charging business, and for that charging business to sustain over phase one where utilization is low, advertising is a keen uh, revenue enabler, right? Now, the way you have put this to me, the proposal is more that I'm an advertising company that, I have to get you the ads.
No.
What is the end end? The end of this is, if someone gets access to passive money by putting some money up front, and that can equal like a 10-15% return for them over the year, there is so much incentive of doing this. You get all of these charges in the place. You own all of the charges, electricity and the selling of electricity. When you become the whole electricity selling business, all these assets are already in place.
You're absolutely right. It's just that when it comes to advertising revenue, location is a big factor. So anyone can't just set it up in their home. But if you run a restaurant, say in GK2 market, because we're here and it's in a prominent place, can definitely be a deal that's worked out.
Don't you think a local business would love to have an ad in front of my house in GK?
No, see, in a residential area, ads don't go for a lot of money, right? Because in a residential area or an RWA, there are lift screens.
What's an RWA?
Resident Welfare Association, which normally runs a society. There are screens on lifts, etc., which don't command a very high price. So if you set up a charging station in that area, you will get pretty much the same price as what the lift screen goes for, which is not very significant. So from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense. So you need to be in a place, one, where there's very high footfall, visibility, etc. So the interesting thing is, when we started, chargers were very dingy, geyser like uh, amenities, which were put in a parking lot and away from the eye of the consumer. For electric mobility adoption to become fast, people need to feel comfortable. They need to see this thing everywhere. They need to be confident that wherever they go, there will be charging. So for us, because of our hybrid business model, when we went to the hospitality sector, we told them, listen, we will put it up for you. We'll put our lovely looking chargers which work, they have solid uptime, but you need to give us high visibility locations. It has to be on your main porch, because only then can I monetize it, right? So it played in two ways. One is, from a brand, we had an opportunity to build it because it became highly visible. So for example, if you go to Radisson Mahipalpur near the airport, anybody who walks into that hotel, you don't need to have an EV to actually see the charger. Anybody walks in, they're able to see it, and they're able to see the ad on the charger as well. So that's great. So then we have places like DLF Emporio. Now there again, they want our chargers because of the design. So the design element has been a major factor. And by design, it's not just the way the charger looks, it's in terms of how you experience it, how do you use it. We always like to take pride in saying that we are a experiential charging player, and for that we look at, the location, the environment, the kind of charger that's there, the app experience, etc. So we need to start looking at all those factors to ensure that the early adopter has a fantastic experience.
Matthew, let's get to cost. I know I stopped us earlier, but we've gone over that completely, and now we've delved into the product. We've delved into so many locations, so much in terms of revenue and things like that. Let's get into the cost.
Okay, so let's first understand the kind of charging stations there are in the market. There's type 1, type 2, type 3. I'll just very quickly run through it. When you buy a car, you're given a type 1 charger, and now you've started getting, which is a AC charger of about 3.3 kilowatt hour. Taking the example of a Nexon, which is the most highly sold car in India, it takes about 10 hours to charge that car.
3.3 would be very slow.
Very slow. So it's what people use in their homes, overnight charging, etc. Then you have the Type 2 charging, which is also AC, which ranges from 7.4 to 22 kilowatt. So that takes about 4 to 5 hours to charge the car. Efficient usage in homes, offices, etc., where the car is parked. And then you have the DC charging. DC charging infrastructure is heavy. It requires transformers sometimes. You need to get extra load from the government or from the discoms. It becomes expensive. It can range anywhere from, say, 6 lakhs to about 70 lakhs.
Setup cost.
The entire all in all cost, equipment plus setup, what we call commissioning, etc. Yeah. So a fast charger. So 2 years ago, we did a pilot with a 120 kilowatt charger. That was a time when most of India was using 30 kilowatt chargers. So it was launched as the fastest charger in India. The setup, the all in all, doing the transformer and the site, etc., cost us easily close to 40 lakhs.
A single charger.
A single charger. And now we are looking at 350 kilowatts. So that will only take the cost higher. Now, DC charging becomes feasible only when utilization is very high, either when you're catering to fleet or the number of vehicles on the road is, significant. Places like destinations require AC chargers because most people come there, they spend a significant amount of time. Even in a mall, when people go there, you spend about 3 hours in a mall, you watch a movie, you eat something, etc. So AC charging works. AC charging from 7.4 to 22 kilowatt can range from anything from, say, 70,000 to about 1.5 to 2 lakhs. That's not too bad. And, generally on the battery also, they say in a cycle, if you're doing 10 charges, do about 8 on AC and do 2 on DC, right? So that the battery life is maintained as well. Yeah. So that's how it works. Generally, typically, a battery, I would say, so 85%. Let's talk about the Nexon because it's the champion in that segment. It's got a 30 kilowatt battery. It would cost you 15 rupees or so on an average to charge your car at a public space. So that's about 450 rupees that you would spend, and you get close to 300 kilometers of range.
1.5 rupee per kilometer.
It's actually even less because, like I said, 90% of the time you're charging at home. And at home, your cost of electricity is much less. It's 9-10 rupees, right?
How much does it cost me to run a Fortuner?
At least 12 rupees a kilometer, at least. So it's easily 1/10 the cost, right? So, I mean, the advantages of an EV are many. One is it's noiseless. There's no vibration because there's no engine. The moving parts are so little, so the maintenance is much less. It's super fun to drive. It's like super fast. The pickup is amazing. Uh, it will really change the way you look at an automobile, right? You don't want to go back.
Really takes some getting used to though. It takes some serious getting used to.
If you accelerate it and you feel that power, and you really will wonder why.
I agree. I am with you there completely. I'm not saying it in a negative way or anything like that, but I just think it takes a lot of getting used to.
I'll add a story.
I'm not so sure though. Why would you say that?
I'll add a story to his thing. So my brother and I, we went to Tesla in Canada, and we went there to test drive some of their cars. So he drove a Model Y and then he drove Model X, and he drives a Sorento. After the experience with Model Y and Model X, where it was very zippy and he was having some fun, he got back into his Sorento, and then he's like, "Bhai, yahi theek hai."
The first time I sat in a Tesla was in Hong Kong, I think in 2016, 2017. And it just felt like sitting inside a mobile phone, right? Like a smartphone. It was just such an amazing experience that I was so sure that I wanted to do something with this entire transition to electric mobility. And I'm so glad that today the newspapers are full of news of Tesla coming into India. So I think you're going to see a very quick revolution.
So I haven't driven an electric car. I've driven an electric scooter. And this was again a friend of mine had a scooter lying at his place, which another friend had given him because he was working on some prototypes and stuff. And he was like, "Why don't you ride it and give it a shot?" It's like, "Okay, cool." So I sat on it and I was like, "Okay, let's see," because I've driven a few scooters and you're used to that whole. I think you get used to the vibration. So I'll give you an example, a very different example, but another company that I was associated with is developing motion-based driving simulators, and we spent a lot of time testing their whole 6 degrees of freedom motion based simulator, and I was very like I got used to the motion. And then they developed a static simulator, and they're like, "Dude, test this." I sat on the static simulator, and I was like, "This feels so weird." Even though it's easier, even though it's cleaner, everything, I was like, "This just feels like something is not right," because it's not yeah, it's not like it's not giving me feedback. Like I felt like the feedback was missing. So I feel a very similar way with EVs and like ICE vehicles, is that like you get so used to the vibration or the feedback or the gradual acceleration, whatever you want to call it. Like it is a learning curve, but as I said, it takes getting used to. I'm sure it is great once you get into it, and I would love to drive an EV very very soon, and like I want to definitely do that. But it's just like I feel like it just takes a lot of getting used to. I remember the first time I sat in an EV or like in a Blue Smart or something like that, and I was like, something just feels off.
Why is it so important for it to start feeling right? What is climate change? Why is it such a big issue? And how will the EV revolution and him getting to believe it's the right thing so important?
I think in the beginning itself, we were talking about, how climate change is something which is something we are experiencing today, right? Like literally sitting in Delhi, we literally feel the heat, right? And the pollution that's there, 90% of the pollution that's there in the environment is caused by the energy sector. And out of this 90%, 13% is contributed by the transport sector. And 90% of the transport sector pollution is caused by uh, road transport, so which is essentially tailpipe emissions. So it's such a huge factor that there are about 18% of people who are meeting with ailments just because of pollution. So I mean, it has to be tackled, and this is one of the low-lying fruit that could lead to this, because it's better technology, it's cleaner technology, and it'll become efficient over time.
The pollution in India, 40% of that is caused by electricity generation, and 9% is road transport. So how are you guys dealing? Are you guys dealing with the electricity generation bit at all?
Not at all. Not at all. So that's a larger theme, and I think over time that will also get cleaner. There's going to be a lot of nuclear energy which comes into play. There's going to be a lot of solar energy that comes into play, and we believe that that will get cleaned up. Right now, we are looking at tailpipe emissions. We are trying to see where the uh, the general direction or energy transition is moving, which is towards electric, and we are confident that there will be various ways in which the source also gets cleaned up over time. Now, we've called our company Sunfuel Electric because over time we want to also integrate solar with the business. Now, solar is already being integrated, like certain parts of the charger could be running on solar energy, like lights, etc. We are unable to dispense energy in terms of kilowatt hour with solar power, but that's what we want to move towards, and that's the goal. I mean, that's why we've outright at the beginning itself called ourselves Sunfuel Electric, because we hope that it will come from a cleaner.
I mean, that's where my question was so starter, because the name suggested you might be doing something in the space of solar. I think the other thing is, are you guys integrated with Google Maps?
We're not integrated with Google Maps. We have an app where you can discover our chargers, and it'll guide you towards that, where you can book and charge. But the Google Map integration is something that's happening with all the charge point operators. It will happen in time. It's not happened yet.
I feel like today our phones get so cluttered with the number of apps we have,
It is a challenge.
and then the moment you're asking someone for payment through a certain app, which they are just downloading for like a charger, you spoke about developing a brand. How do you develop that trust?
I think the trust comes through the experience. So you have to first introduce the consumer to the concept. They have to utilize it, they have to experience it, and only then do you build trust.
Education largely depends on the referee, and the referee in this case is the government. I want to know, has the government been of help to your company? Has the government been of help to the sector? How has it done so, and how do you think it could be better?
So the government has actually played a huge role. First of all, the government has to give direction. So, for example, when businesses invest in a certain sector, they need to know that the government is also planning to move in that direction. So, in India, we have something that's called a FAME policy, which means the faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. So, it's a scheme to ensure that this sector grows. And this has been very useful because this, from a consumer perspective, it has helped people, uh, save on registration, road tax, etc., which brings down the cost of purchase. And from a manufacturer's side, this scheme also incentivizes people to start manufacturing in India, to start localizing production for electric vehicles. So this eventually will lead to lower costs, which will lead to mass adoption, which will significantly bring down costs further.
Our podcast, we believe, is watched by 18 to 40-year-olds who are trying to build a business, trying to get into building a business. What would be the cheapest or the easiest or the lowest hanging fruit business in this space that these people could just jump into and try to make an impact in, especially in India?
So I think a very interesting way for people would be to invest in one single charging station, which you can have as a public station. So, for example, you could franchise a charging station, put it up in front of your home, like you said. It could be open to the public. You would utilization might be low now, but it could be higher over a period of time. But it's a low capex fruit if you go in for an AC charger. You could do that, and if more and more people start doing that outside their businesses or near their homes, I think there is a possibility for the infrastructure to expand as well.
Does Sunfuel Mobility have these AC chargers that they can provide these people?
Yes, we do. We have what we call the monolith. We do sell that to people as
Isn't
well.
I saw sorry, I thought the monolith was DC.
The monolith is not DC. The DC charger that we have is called the Express Miles, and they are fast 120 kilowatt chargers.
And now you're developing the 350 kilo.
We are working on getting a much faster charger to the market as well.
So how much would the monolith cost someone?
The monolith ranges from 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs. We have a 7.7 kilowatt version at 150, and we have the 22 kilowatt version at 2 lakhs. So there are a lot of standalone hotels and restaurants that have bought the unit from us because they want to control the entire thing. So this is pretty similar to, so they're actually becoming a business. They're selling electricity on their premises. They are getting us to do the maintenance as well as provide the upkeep of the charger, the software, etc. And they are selling electricity and keeping the margins.
So what is the cost other than the monolith? What are the surrounding costs that they will have? So say they buy the, let's say, 2 lakh rupees is their monolith cost.
So there's wiring which needs to come, and you need to have like a platform on which the product is kept. So all in all, it could cost anywhere from 25,000 to about 60-70,000, based on how much you have to pull the wire, where it has to be pulled from, etc.
And in terms of electricity, how much does the
So you get an EV meter. You can get your power source for as less as 6 rupees, but it's a state related thing. So there are certain states where it's higher, and then you could sell it from anywhere ranging from 12 to 15 rupees, which is the standard pricing that's there in the market.
so does one have to purchase a separate electricity connection, or does it come under their home connection?
So you can use a home connection, but then the cost is high. If you get an EV connection, then your cost is low. So if you're using it as a business, then you would rather get a EV connection.
Matthew, how many chargers do you guys have in place now?
We have about 150 live chargers right now across the country. We have about 400 locations, and we are enabling them as we go forward.
Matthew, who are you? Why do you give a shit about climate change, about EVs, about the world? Why do you care? Why are you in this space? Should not matter.
Look, see, I think I experience pollution living in Delhi, and I think it's about time that we make a change, because that's the only way that things will change. I love the business idea. I like this transformational era. I think this energy transformation is going to be as significant as the move from, or more significant as the move from buttons phone to smartphones. Everyone's going to be part of this journey. You and I are going to be part of this journey in the next 10 years. And I love to be in the space where there's all the excitement.
Can we get a little background on you, Matthew? Who are you? Where do you come from?
Yeah, so I come from Kerala. I went to the Lawrence School, Lovedale, which is a boarding school in the south. I then moved to Bombay to Xavier's College to do my economics. And I started my first job at Warner Brothers while I was still in college. I then became a banker, worked with HDFC and HSBC Bank. I moved to Scotland to do my MBA. I joined Philip Morris International in the UK. I worked in London. Then I moved to Southeast Asia for a few years, spent 3 to 4 years there, and then moved back to India. Um, in terms of my background, so I started off uh, creating communities with Warner Brothers, and then I was a banker. Uh, I then, after my MBA, got into corporate finance, uh, trade marketing, etc. And today, I'm running a business where I do everything, right? So I like to think of myself as a generalist. I can get absorbed in any aspect of the business, and I think that's what keeps me alert and happy.
Matthew, you said there were four co-founders, and you defined their roles in a very brief manner.
Yeah.
You also told us before we started recording that they're in like all parts of the country. How do you guys work?
They're not in all parts of the country. We're all in NCR, but we all look after very different things. Sudhir is the CEO. He focuses on the strategy. Gulpanag is based in Greater Noida, and she focuses on creating a community. We have a community pillar which is called E-Trails. E-Trails is where we are trying to. So, like I said, the early adopter has a significant role in accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles, and we think that the feedback that they give to the community is what will give confidence for others to buy. So, for example, if you're the first one in this particular market or GK2 area to have a green number plate, you're going to have your neighbors reach out to you on a daily basis to ask you what your experience is like, right? So we curate this community. We, with the hotels, the partnerships that we have, we also get in a new kind of customer to their door, and this community plays a big part in that. So we do curated drives across the length and breadth of the country, which Gul manages. uh, Digital out of home is a very significant part of our business at this stage for revenue generation, while utilization is low. Rishabh looks after that particular piece. So that's how the business is looked at today.
Matthew, we have a tradition on our podcast. The last guest has left you a question, and we would love for you to answer the question and then leave a question for the next guest, not knowing who they are. The question we have for you is, what do you think is the impact and power of words to communicate your business? How should they be used?
I think it's probably one of the best ways to communicate. Platforms like this really help us in creating awareness. Creating awareness is part of this journey. It's a new sector, it's transition. It's very important that we are heard, uh, because sometimes people, these interactions really help us also understand what we are doing. Sometimes things clear out for us as we go along, right? uh, Businesses start with one idea and then they continue to move in different directions based on the environment and the feedback loop that you get from either from your customers, your vendors, etc. So it's very important to keep communicating. It's only then that you get feedback, and that's how you grow as a person or as a business.